The wagon wheel broke with a crack that echoed across the barren Montana plains, and Hannah Hayes knew this was how she would die. She stood there in the scorching August sun of 1876, staring at the splintered wood and collapsed wagon as if looking at it long enough might fix it through sheer force of will. Her dress, once a respectable gray cotton, hung in tatters around her ankles. Dust caked every inch of exposed skin, mixing with the tears she refused to let fall. Behind her, 300 miles of nothing. Ahead, more of the same. She had been following a merchant caravan heading toward Montana territory when they had abandoned her 2 days ago after discovering she could not pay the remaining fare. They had taken most of her supplies as compensation, leaving her with a broken wagon, one horse that had since run off, and enough water for maybe another day if she was careful. The wind picked up, hot and merciless, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and her own failure. Hannah sank to her knees beside the wagon, her hands trembling as she tried to assess what could be salvaged. Not much. A blanket with holes. A canteen half full of warm water that tasted of metal. A small bundle containing a spare dress just as worn as the one she wore. And tucked beneath the wagon seat, wrapped in oilcloth, the deed to a property in Council Bluffs, Iowa that she had inherited from an aunt she had never met. It was supposed to be her salvation, her new beginning. Instead, it would be buried with her bones when someone found her body weeks or months from now. "I do not deserve kindness," she whispered to the empty prairie, her voice cracking. It was something she had told herself so many times it had become a prayer of sorts, a mantra that explained every terrible thing that had happened to her. The death of her parents when she was 15. The aunt who had taken her in but worked her like a servant. The man she had almost married who had stolen her savings and disappeared. The town that had whispered about her, blamed her, made her feel like every misfortune was somehow her fault. She had learned to make herself small to expect nothing, to believe she was owed nothing. The sound of hoofbeats made her head snap up. In the distance, a rider approached, moving at an easy pace that spoke of someone comfortable in this harsh landscape. Hannah's first instinct was to hide, but there was nowhere to go. She stood on shaking legs, one hand gripping the wagon for support, the other instinctively moving to smooth her hair before she realized how foolish that was. What did it matter how she looked? The rider drew closer, and Hannah could make out more details. A man, tall even sitting in the saddle, wearing a dusty brown hat and riding a beautiful roan mare that looked well cared for despite the harsh conditions. He slowed as he approached, and Hannah saw his face clearly for the first time. Strong jaw covered in several days' worth of stubble, eyes the color of whiskey catching the sunlight, and a cautious expression that suggested he had learned to be wary of strangers. He looked to be in his late 20s, weathered but not old, capable in the way men became when they spent their lives outdoors. "Madam," he said, touching the brim of his hat. His voice was deep, rough around the edges but not unkind. "Looks like you are in some trouble." Hannah wanted to laugh at the understatement but managed to keep her composure. "My wagon wheel broke. I am afraid I am somewhat stranded." She tried to keep her voice steady, to maintain some dignity even as her world crumbled around her. The man dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. He was even taller standing, at least 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the lean, muscular build of someone who worked hard for his living. He walked over to examine the wheel, kneeling beside it with one hand resting on his thigh. Hannah noticed he wore a revolver on his hip, but it sat easy in its holster, not positioned for a quick draw. A working gun, not a gunfighter's weapon. "This is broken clean through," he said after a moment, looking up at her with those whiskey-colored eyes. Where were you headed? Council Bluffs, Hannah said, then corrected herself. Or rather, I was trying to get back to civilization. Any town would do at this point. He stood, brushing dust from his knees. Council Bluffs is in Iowa, madam. You are about 500 miles off course if that was your destination. Hannah felt her cheeks burn. I know where it is. I was with a caravan that was heading west, but they left me behind. I was trying to turn around and head back east. By yourself. There was no judgment in his voice, only what seemed like genuine surprise. I did not have much choice in the matter. Hannah heard the bitterness creep into her tone and hated it. She did not want pity, and she certainly did not want to appear weak in front of this stranger. The man studied her for a long moment, and Hannah had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing far more than she wanted to reveal. Then he nodded, seemingly coming to some internal decision. Name is Ryder Lawson. I've got a ranch about 15 miles north of here. Small operation, just me and a couple of hired hands during branding season. You are welcome to come back with me, rest up, and we can figure out how to get you where you need to go. Hannah stared at him. Kindness from a stranger felt like a trap, because in her experience, kindness always came with a price. I cannot pay you, did not ask you to. Ryder walked back to his horse, checking the saddle, but you cannot stay out here. Another day or two and the sun will finish what that broken wheel started. I do not deserve kindness, Hannah said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She looked away, embarrassed. I mean, I do not want to impose. When she glanced back, Ryder was watching her with an expression she could not quite read. Confusion, maybe, mixed with something that might have been concern. Madam, I do not know what happened to you before you ended up out here, but deserving has got nothing to do with it. You need help and I am offering it. Simple as that. It should not have made her want to cry, but it did. Hannah blinked rapidly, forcing down the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. I have some belongings in the wagon. We will get them. Ryder moved to the wagon and began pulling out her meager possessions. He did not comment on how little there was, just bundled everything efficiently and secured it to his saddle. When he found the deed wrapped in oilcloth, he held it up questioningly. That is mine, Hannah said quickly, reaching for it. Ryder handed it over without hesitation. Did not mean to pry, just making sure I got everything. She clutched the deed to her chest, feeling foolish. Thank you. The horse can carry us both if we do not push her too hard, Ryder said, swinging back into the saddle. He extended his hand down to her. It will take a few hours, but we will get there before dark. Hannah looked at his outstretched hand. Strong fingers, calloused from work, nails trimmed short and clean despite the dirt of travel. She could see old scars across his knuckles, evidence of a life that had not been easy. For a moment, she hesitated, every instinct screaming at her to refuse, to protect herself from whatever disappointment would inevitably follow. But the alternative was dying alone on the prairie, and Hannah discovered she was not quite ready for that yet. She placed her hand in his, and Ryder pulled her up behind him with surprising ease. Hold on, he said, and Hannah wrapped her arms around his waist, feeling the solid warmth of him through his shirt. He smelled of leather and horses and something else, maybe sage or the prairie wind itself. We will take it slow. The mare started forward at a walk, and Hannah watched over Ryder's shoulder as her broken wagon grew smaller and smaller behind them. She was leaving behind the last physical remnant of her old life, and she did not know whether to feel relieved or terrified. Probably both. They rode in silence for the first hour. The landscape rolled past in shades of gold and brown, endless grass rippling in the wind like water. Hawks circled overhead, and once Hannah saw a small herd of pronghorn antelope in the distance, white rumps flashing as they bounded away. The sun beat down relentlessly, but there was something almost peaceful about the rhythm of the horse's gait and the vast emptiness around them. "You said you inherited property in Council Bluffs?" Ryder asked eventually, his voice startling her out of her thoughts. "Yes, from an aunt. I never met her, but apparently she left me a house and a small shop." Hannah felt strange talking to the back of his head, but there was something easier about it too. Not having to see his expression made the words come more freely. "I was living in Omaha, working as a seamstress. When I got the letter from the lawyer, it seemed like a sign, a chance to start over. What happened to change your plans?" Hannah was quiet for a moment, debating how much to tell this stranger, but he had already seen her at her lowest, stranded and desperate. What did it matter if he knew the rest? "I saved what money I could and paid to join a merchant caravan heading west. I thought once they got far enough, they would turn south and I could make my way to Council Bluffs from there. I did not have enough for direct passage, you see. But the wagon master discovered I had misunderstood the route. We were never going anywhere near Iowa. When I could not pay additional fare to stay with them until we reached a town, he took what I had left and left me behind. That is a low thing to do to anyone, let alone a woman alone." There was anger in Ryder's voice, carefully controlled but present nonetheless. "I should have been clearer about the route, should have had more money, should have planned better." Hannah heard herself making excuses and stopped. "It was my fault. How do you figure?" Ryder shifted slightly in the saddle, and Hannah adjusted her grip on his waist. "Sounds to me like that wagon master saw an opportunity to take advantage and did just that. That is on him, not you." Hannah did not know how to respond to that. She had spent so long believing every bad thing was somehow her doing that the idea someone else might be at fault felt foreign. "Well, regardless, here I am, stranded in Montana territory instead of setting up shop in Iowa." "Montana is not so bad once you get used to it," Ryder said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Gets cold as hell in winter, but the summers are beautiful if you can handle the heat. And the land, there is nothing else like it. You feel like you can breathe here." "You sound like you love it." Hannah found herself relaxing slightly, drawn in by the genuine warmth in his tone. "I do. Came out here 4 years ago with nothing but a horse and a dream. Worked as a ranch hand for a couple of years, saved every penny and finally bought my own place 2 years back. It is not much yet, just a small house and a barn, about 50 head of cattle, but it is mine." Pride colored his words, and Hannah felt a pang of envy. What would it be like to have something that was truly yours, built with your own hands and sweat? "That must be a good feeling," she said softly. "Best feeling in the world." Ryder paused, then added, "I grew up on my father's ranch in Wyoming. He was a hard man, believed in discipline more than kindness. When I told him I wanted to do things differently, wanted to be my own boss, he told me I would fail, that I was too soft, too foolish. Proving him wrong has been its own kind of satisfaction." Hannah understood that desire all too well. "My parents died of cholera when I was 15. My aunt took me in, but she made it clear I was a burden. I worked in her household, cooking and cleaning and sewing, but it was never enough. She would tell me I should be grateful, that without her, I would be on the streets. When she died last year, I thought I would finally be free, but she left everything to a cousin. I was back where I started, except now I was 22 and had nothing to show for 7 years of work. That is why the inheritance from your other aunt seemed like such a miracle," Ryder said, understanding in his voice. "Yes, a house and a shop already set up for a seamstress business. It seemed too good to be true." Hannah laughed bitterly. "I suppose it was. You still have the deed, though. Once we get you to Council Bluffs, that property is still waiting. The casual confidence in his voice, the assumption that she would make it to Iowa, made something tight in Hannah's chest loosen just slightly. Once we get there, you say it like it is a certainty. Why would it not be? Ryder's tone suggested genuine confusion. It is August now. Give yourself a few days to rest up at my place, then we will figure out the best way to get you east. There are stage lines running through Helena, and from there you can catch a train. You will be in Council Bluffs before September. Hannah wanted to believe him, but hope had disappointed her too many times. You make it sound so simple. Sometimes things are simple. We just make them complicated by overthinking. Ryder pointed ahead, where a line of trees indicated a water source. Creek is just up there. We will stop and let the horse drink, stretch our legs a bit. They rode down to the creek, and Ryder dismounted first before helping Hannah down. Her legs were stiff from riding, and she stumbled slightly. His hand steadied her, warm and solid on her waist, and for a moment they stood close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his eyes. Then he stepped back, professional distance restored, and led the horse to the water. Hannah found a flat rock and sat down, watching as Ryder tended to the mare with practiced efficiency. He removed her saddle to let her back cool, checked her hooves, ran his hands down her legs looking for any signs of injury or strain. The care he took was evident in every movement, and the horse clearly trusted him, leaning into his touch when he stroked her neck. "She is beautiful," Hannah said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Her name is Rosie. Raised her from a foal. She's got the best temperament of any horse I have ever worked with, smart as they come too." Ryder pulled out a canteen and took a long drink before offering it to Hannah. "Water is fresh. Filled it this morning." Hannah accepted the canteen and drank gratefully. The water was warm but clean, tasting faintly of metal from the container. "Thank you for all of this. I know I already said it, but I mean it. You did not have to stop." Ryder shrugged, looking almost uncomfortable with her gratitude. "My mother raised me to help people when I could. She was the kindest woman I ever knew, always taking in strays and feeding travelers. She would have skinned me alive if I rode past someone in trouble. She sounds wonderful. Is she still in Wyoming? She passed 5 years ago. Heart just gave out one day while she was hanging laundry." Ryder's voice was quiet, full of old grief. "My father was never the same after. Got even harder, even meaner. That is when I decided to leave. I am sorry." Hannah knew how inadequate the words were, but she meant them sincerely. They sat by the creek for a while longer, not talking, just existing in the space together. It should have felt awkward, being alone with a strange man in the middle of nowhere, but somehow it did not. There was something steady about Ryder, something that made Hannah feel safer than she had in a long time. When they finally mounted up again and continued north, she held on a little less desperately, trusting him to get them where they needed to go. The sun was lowering toward the horizon when buildings finally appeared in the distance. Ryder's ranch was modest, but well-maintained. A small house built from rough-hewn logs, a barn that looked newer than the house, and a series of corrals and outbuildings scattered around the property. Cattle grazed in a nearby pasture, and Hannah could see a windmill turning lazily in the breeze, pumping water into a large trough. "It is not much," Ryder said as they approached, and Hannah could hear both pride and defensiveness in his tone. "But everything is built solid and meant to last." "It looks like a home," Hannah said honestly, and felt him relax slightly in front of her. They rode into the yard, and a man emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on his pants. He was older than Ryder, probably in his 40s, with a weathered face and sharp eyes that took in Hannah's presence with obvious curiosity. "Ryder, you are back earlier than I expected." The man's voice carried the hint of an accent, maybe German. "And you brought company. This is Miss Hayes. Her wagon broke down about 15 miles south. Miss Hayes, this is Otto Schmidt. He helps out around the place, mostly with the livestock." Ryder dismounted and helped Hannah down again. Her legs were even stiffer now, and she had to hold onto his arm for a moment until the feeling returned. "Pleased to meet you," Hannah said, trying to project confidence despite her bedraggled appearance. Otto nodded respectfully. "Miss, I will take care of Rosie. You look like you could use some rest." "Thank you, Otto." Ryder turned to Hannah, gesturing toward the house. "Come on. I will show you where you can clean up, and then we will get some food in you." The inside of Ryder's house was as simple as the outside. One main room that served as kitchen, dining area, and sitting room, with a fireplace taking up most of one wall. A door on the left led to what Hannah assumed was Ryder's bedroom, and a ladder against the right wall climbed to a loft space. Everything was clean but sparse, functional rather than decorative. A few books sat on a shelf near the fireplace, and a rifle hung above the mantel, but otherwise, the space was bare of personal touches. "The loft is just storage right now," Ryder said, following her gaze. "But there is a cot up there and some blankets. You can have my room if you prefer." "I can sleep out here." "I would not want to put you out," Hannah protested automatically. "You would not be. I sleep under the stars half the summer anyway, cooler than being inside." Ryder moved to the fireplace and began building up the fire that had burned down to embers. "There is a pump outside the back door and a wash basin in the bedroom. I will heat some water if you want a proper wash." The thought of being clean again was almost overwhelming. "That would be wonderful, but I do not want to be a bother." Ryder straightened, fixing her with a look that was equal parts exasperated and amused. "Miss Hayes, you are going to have to stop apologizing for existing. You are not a bother. I invited you here, remember?" Hannah felt her cheeks flush. "Sorry, I mean thank you. Better." He grinned, and the expression transformed his face, making him look younger and more approachable. "Now, why do not you sit down before you fall down, and I will get things sorted." Hannah sank into one of the rough-hewn chairs at the table. Her body suddenly aware of how exhausted it was now that she was finally somewhere safe. She watched as Ryder moved around the space with easy familiarity, heating water in a large kettle, pulling out bread and cheese and some kind of preserved meat for a simple meal. His movements were efficient but not hurried, the actions of someone who had learned to take care of himself. "Do you always feed everyone you find stranded on the prairie?" Hannah asked, accepting the plate he handed her. "You are the first, actually. Most people have enough sense not to end up in the middle of nowhere with a broken wagon." He said it without judgment, just simple observation, and sat down across from her with his own plate. Hannah took a bite of bread, forcing herself to eat slowly even though her stomach was demanding she devour everything in sight. "How did you end up out here today? Just riding, or were you looking for something?" "Checking fences in the south pasture. Lost a couple of cattle last week. Wanted to make sure we did not have breaks that were letting them wander off." Ryder cut a piece of cheese, popping it into his mouth. "Good thing I did, or I would not have found you. Lucky for me." Hannah meant it sincerely. Without Ryder, she would still be sitting next to that broken wagon, slowly dying of exposure and dehydration. They ate in companionable silence for a while. When the kettle began to steam, Ryder poured the hot water into a large pitcher and carried it into the bedroom. "I will leave this in here for you. There are towels in the chest at the foot of the bed, and the basin is on the washstand. Take your time." Hannah finished eating and gathered her small bundle of belongings. The bedroom was as simple as the rest of the house. A large bed frame built from pine, covered with a colorful quilt that looked handmade. A dresser, a washstand, and a chest were the only other furniture. But it was clean and smelled faintly of soap and leather, and to Hannah, it looked like paradise. She poured water into the basin and began to wash, using a cloth to scrub away days' worth of dust and sweat. It was not a proper bath, but it was close enough that she felt almost human again by the time she finished. She changed into her other dress, which was not much better than the one she had been wearing, but at least was not quite as dirty. When she emerged from the bedroom, Ryder had cleared away the dishes and was sitting by the fire, reading one of the books from the shelf. He looked up when she entered, and something shifted in his expression. "You clean up nice, Miss Hayes." "Hannah," she said impulsively. "You have rescued me from certain death and fed me. I think we can dispense with formalities." "Hannah, then, and you can call me Ryder." He closed the book, setting it aside. "You look tired. Why do not you get some rest? We can talk more in the morning about how to get you to Council Bluffs." Hannah wanted to protest, wanted to prove she was not weak or needy, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a physical weight. "Are you sure about taking the bedroom? I really can sleep in the loft." "I am sure." "Now go on before you fall asleep standing up." Hannah did not have the energy to argue further. She retreated to the bedroom and closed the door, then sank onto the bed. The mattress was stuffed with straw and firmer than she was used to, but compared to the ground or a wagon bed, it felt luxurious. She pulled the quilt up around herself, breathing in the clean scent of it, and was asleep within minutes. She woke once during the night, disoriented and unsure where she was. Moonlight streamed through the small window, and for a moment, panic seized her. Then memory returned, bringing with it a wave of relief so strong it made her dizzy. She was safe. In a real bed in a real house with a man who had asked for nothing in return for his help. It seemed impossible, like something from a story rather than her actual life. Hannah lay back down, pulling the quilt close, and let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe things could be different. That maybe she could have a fresh start, a new life in Council Bluffs. That maybe, just maybe, she did deserve kindness after all. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Hannah woke to the sound of roosters and the low of cattle, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. She dressed quickly in her cleaner dress and emerged from the bedroom to find Ryder already up, coffee brewing on the stove and the smell of bacon filling the air. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder with a smile. "Hope you slept well." "Better than I have in weeks," Hannah admitted, moving to the table. "Can I help with anything? Just sit and tell me how you take your coffee." Ryder poured a cup of the dark liquid, waiting for her answer. "A little sugar if you have it, no milk." He added sugar from a small tin and handed her the cup. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and Hannah felt a small jolt of awareness. She pushed it away, focusing on the coffee instead. It was strong and bitter even with the sugar, but it was hot and exactly what she needed. Ryder served up breakfast, simple fare of bacon, eggs, and the bread from last night toasted over the fire. They ate together, and Hannah marveled at how comfortable it felt. She had known this man for less than a day, but there was an ease between them that usually took much longer to develop. "I was thinking about your situation," Ryder said between bites of egg. "The nearest stage station is in Helena, about 80 miles northwest of here. Stage runs twice a week, usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Today is Thursday, so if we can get you there by next Wednesday, you would only have to wait a few days at most." 80 miles, Hannah repeated, doing the math in her head. "That is several days' ride, is it not? 4 or 5, depending on how hard we push." "But I've got business in Helena anyway. Been putting off a supply run for a couple of weeks now. We could travel together. Make sure you get there safe." Ryder spoke casually, as if offering to escort a strange woman 80 miles across Montana territory was the most normal thing in the world. You would do that? Hannah could not keep the disbelief out of her voice. Do not see why not. Like I said, I need to go anyway. Might as well have company. He finished his breakfast and leaned back in his chair, watching her with those steady eyes. Unless you would rather wait here and try to find another traveling companion, I am sure someone will come through eventually. Hannah shook her head quickly. No, if you are sure it is not too much trouble, I would be grateful for the escort. Then it is settled. We will leave Monday morning. That gives you a few days to rest up and get your strength back. Ryder stood, collecting the plates. In the meantime, make yourself at home. I have got work to do around the ranch, but you are welcome to anything you need. Is there anything I can do to help? I feel wrong just sitting idle while you work. Hannah stood as well, following him to the basin where he began washing dishes. You know how to cook? Ryder asked, a hopeful note in his voice. Yes, quite well actually. My aunt made sure I learned every domestic skill imaginable. There was bitterness in her tone, but also pride. She might resent how she had learned, but she could not deny she had learned well. Then if you wanted to handle meals for the next few days, I would count that as more than fair trade. Otto is a good man, but his cooking is about as inspired as eating boot leather. Ryder grinned at her, and Hannah found herself smiling back. I can do that. Do you have supplies, or do I need to work with what is available? Pantry is through there. He pointed to a small door she had not noticed before. It is fairly well stocked. Make whatever you want. Hannah explored the pantry, pleasantly surprised by what she found. Flour, sugar, salt, dried beans, preserved vegetables, several kinds of dried meat, even some spices. Not a huge variety, but more than enough to work with. Her mind was already spinning with possibilities, the creative part of her that had been dormant for so long waking up at the prospect of cooking for someone who would actually appreciate the effort. Over the next few days, Hannah fell into an easy routine. She woke early, made breakfast for Ryder and Otto, then spent the mornings cleaning and organizing the house. Ryder protested at first, saying she did not need to do all that, but Hannah insisted. It felt good to be useful, to have a purpose beyond simply existing. In the afternoons, she prepared dinner, putting actual effort into the meals in a way she had not done in years. Fried chicken with biscuits and gravy, beef stew thick with vegetables. Even a dried apple pie that made both men groan with appreciation. Miss Hannah, if you ever need work, I will hire you just for your cooking, Otto said on Saturday evening, finishing his second helping of pie. Hannah laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. I will keep that in mind, Otto. Ryder watched her with an expression she could not quite read, something warm and intent that made her stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. After Otto left for the small cabin where he stayed on the property, Ryder helped her wash up from dinner, working side by side in comfortable silence. You have done too much, he said finally, drying the last plate and setting it on the shelf. I brought you here to rest, not work yourself to exhaustion. I have rested plenty, and I wanted to do this. Hannah turned to face him, surprised to find how close he was standing. You have given me so much, Ryder. A place to stay, food, safety, your time. Let me give something back. You do not owe me anything, Hannah. His voice was soft, serious. I did not help you expecting repayment. I know. That is what makes it so important that I do this. She struggled to find the right words. All my life, people have helped me and made sure I knew I was in their debt. You have helped me and asked for nothing. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? Ryder reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek for just a moment. You deserve to be helped, Hannah. You deserve kindness and safety and all the good things you have convinced yourself you do not deserve. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. You do not know that. You do not know me. I know you have been hurt. I know someone, probably a lot of someone's, made you believe you were not worth much. And I know they were wrong. His hand dropped back to his side, but his eyes held hers. I have watched you these past few days. The way you pour yourself into everything you do, even something as simple as making dinner. The way you talk about your plans for the shop in Council Bluffs, your face lights up like a kid talking about Christmas. You have got dreams, Hannah, real ones, and you have got the grit to see them through. That is worth something. Ryder. His name came out as barely more than a whisper. I am not trying to make you uncomfortable, he said, stepping back to give her space. Just want you to know how I see you, how anyone with eyes should see you. Hannah did not know what to say to that. Part of her wanted to argue, to list all the reasons she was not special or worthy. But another part, a part that was growing stronger the longer she spent in Ryder's presence, wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe she could be the person he seemed to think she was. Thank you, she said finally, the words inadequate but sincere. They stood there in the fading light, something unspoken building between them. Then Ryder cleared his throat and moved toward the door. I should check on the horses before it gets full dark. Sleep well, Hannah. You too, Ryder. That night, lying in his bed, Hannah stared at the ceiling and tried to make sense of what she was feeling. In less than a week, this quiet cowboy had turned her world upside down. He had saved her life, yes, but it was more than that. He had treated her with a respect and gentleness she had never experienced before. He looked at her like she mattered, like her thoughts and feelings were important. And somewhere along the way, she had started to care what he thought, had started to want to see that warm look in his eyes. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, because in just a few days, she would leave for Helena and then Council Bluffs. She would start her new life, alone, the way she had always planned. The thought of leaving Ryder behind made her chest ache in a way she did not want to examine too closely. But what was the alternative? She barely knew him. And even if her feelings were real, even if they could somehow build something together, she had the shop waiting in Iowa. She had plans, a future she had been working toward. She could not just abandon all of that because a handsome cowboy had been kind to her, could she? Hannah rolled over, pulling the quilt close, and told herself to stop being foolish. Whatever she was feeling would pass. It was gratitude, that was all. Gratitude and the natural response to being shown kindness after so much hardship. Once she was settled in Council Bluffs, once she had built her new life, she would forget all about Ryder Lawson and his whiskey-colored eyes. She almost believed it. Sunday passed in a lazy haze. Ryder declared it a day of rest, and they spent most of it sitting on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, how he wanted to expand the herd, maybe get into horse breeding. She told him about her plans for the shop, the kinds of dresses she wanted to make, the clients she hoped to attract. They discovered they both loved reading, though their tastes differed. He preferred adventure stories and accounts of exploration. She loved novels about faraway places and different times. Never been much of anywhere outside of Wyoming and Montana, Ryder admitted, whittling a piece of wood as they talked. But I like reading about other places. Makes the world seem bigger. I have never been anywhere either, really. Omaha is the farthest I have ever traveled, and that is only because my aunt moved there. Hannah watched his hands work the wood, creating something that was starting to look like a small horse. But I dream about it sometimes. Paris, London, New York. All those places that seem so grand and impossible. Maybe they are not impossible. Maybe you just have not gotten there yet. Ryder blew wood shavings off his carving, examining his work with a critical eye. You really believe that? That anything is possible if you want it badly enough? Hannah asked. I believe that if you do not try, you have already failed. But if you do try, well, at least you have got a chance. He looked up at her, serious. 4 years ago, I was a ranch hand making $30 a month and sleeping in a bunkhouse with 10 other men. I wanted my own place so badly I could taste it, but it seemed impossible. I had no money, no prospects, nothing but a stubborn refusal to give up. And now here I am. Here you are, Hannah agreed softly, looking around at the ranch, at the life he had built through sheer determination. Here you are too, Ryder said, his eyes on hers. Heading toward your own dream, your own place, your own business. That is just as impressive as anything I have done. I have not done it yet. Hannah felt the familiar fear creep in, the voice that told her she would fail, that the shop would not work out, that she would end up right back where she started. But you will. Ryder spoke with such confidence that Hannah almost believed him. And when you do, I expect you to write and tell me all about it. The thought of corresponding with Ryder after she left made Hannah's heart beat faster. You would want to hear from me. Of course I would. Do not get that much interesting mail out here. Would be nice to hear about life in Iowa, about how the shop is doing. He went back to his carving, but there was a tension in his shoulders that suggested the casual tone was carefully constructed. If you wanted to write, that is, no obligation. I would like that, Hannah said, and meant it. I would like that very much. That night, Hannah made a special dinner, using the last of the fresh vegetables from Ryder's small garden and some of the better cuts of beef from the cold cellar. She made a roast with potatoes and carrots, biscuits that came out perfectly golden, and even a simple cake using preserved peaches. It was a thank you and a goodbye rolled into one, though they would not leave until morning. Otto ate with them, as had become the custom over the past few days, and the three of them lingered over the meal, laughing and telling stories. Otto shared tales of growing up in Germany and his decision to come to America seeking adventure. Ryder told them about a cattle drive that had gone wrong, with stampedes and storms and a river crossing that had nearly cost him his life. Hannah found herself opening up too, sharing happier memories from before her parents died, when life had been simple and full of love. You should laugh more often, Miss Hannah, Otto said as they were finishing the cake. You have a good laugh, should use it more. Hannah felt herself blush but smiled. I will try to remember that, Otto. After Otto left and the dishes were done, Ryder walked Hannah out to the porch. The night was clear and cool, stars spread across the sky in a glittering blanket that seemed close enough to touch. They stood side by side, not touching but close enough that Hannah could feel the warmth radiating from him. Montana has the best skies, Ryder said softly, looking up. One of the things I love most about this place, you can see forever. It is beautiful, Hannah agreed, though she found her gaze drifting from the stars to his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the slight curl of his hair where it brushed his collar. Hannah. Ryder turned to face her, and in the starlight his eyes looked almost silver. I want you to know these past few days, they have meant a lot to me. Having you here, talking with you, getting to know you. It has been, well, it has been really special. It has been special for me too. Hannah's voice came out barely above a whisper. When you get to Council Bluffs, when you set up your shop and make it successful, because I know you will, I hope you will be happy. I hope you will find everything you are looking for. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. And I hope that you will remember that you deserve all of it. Every bit of happiness, every success. You deserve it, Hannah. Tears blurred her vision, but Hannah blinked them back. How do you do that? How do you make me believe things could be different? Because they can be. Because you are different than you think. Ryder reached out, gently wiping away a tear that had escaped despite her best efforts. You are strong and brave and talented. You survived things that would have broken other people. You kept going when it would have been easier to give up. That is not someone who does not deserve kindness, Hannah. That is someone who deserves the world. Before she could think better of it, before fear could stop her, Hannah stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. For a moment, Ryder stood frozen, surprised. Then his arms came around her, holding her close, and Hannah let herself believe, just for a moment, that this could be real. That what she was feeling was not just gratitude or loneliness, but something deeper, something that could last. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other under the Montana stars. Hannah breathed in the scent of him, leather and sage and something uniquely Ryder, committing it to memory. When they finally pulled apart, both of them seemed reluctant to let go completely. "We should get some sleep," Ryder said, his voice rougher than usual. "Long ride ahead of us tomorrow." "Yes." Hannah stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself against the sudden chill. "Good night, Ryder." "Good night, Hannah." She went inside, closing the door softly behind her, and leaned against it for a moment. Her heart was racing, and her mind was spinning with thoughts she could not quite organize. She cared for Ryder more than she should after such a short time. Maybe it was because he had saved her, or maybe it was because he treated her like she mattered. Or maybe it was simply because he was a good man, the kind of man she had never known existed. But tomorrow they would leave, and in a week or so, she would be on a stage heading east. Back to the life she had planned, the future she had been working toward. That was what she wanted, was it not? Independence, her own business, a fresh start where no one knew her past or her failures. So why did the thought of leaving Ryder behind feel like she was making a terrible mistake? Hannah did not have an answer. She went to bed still turning it over in her mind, and when sleep finally came, she dreamed of starlit skies and whiskey-colored eyes. They left at dawn Monday morning, Ryder and Hannah riding together on Rosie while Otto stayed behind to watch the ranch. They had packed light, just the essentials for 4 or 5 days on the trail. Hannah's meager belongings were secured to the saddle, the deed to her property still safely wrapped in oilcloth. The first day of riding was long and tiring. They followed old game trails and deer paths, cutting across country rather than sticking to the main roads. Ryder said it was faster this way, and Hannah trusted his knowledge of the land. They stopped occasionally to rest the horse and stretch their legs, but mostly they rode in comfortable silence, the landscape rolling past in shades of gold and green. That night, they made camp beside a small stream. Ryder set up a simple camp with the ease of long practice, building a fire and laying out bedrolls while Hannah tended to Rosie. He had taught her the basics of horse care over the past few days, and she found she enjoyed the work, the simple satisfaction of taking care of another living creature. Dinner was jerky and hardtack, simple trail food that required no cooking. They ate sitting by the fire, watching the flames dance and listening to the night sounds of the prairie. Coyotes called in the distance, and somewhere an owl hooted, hunting. "You ever get lonely out here?" Hannah asked, breaking the long silence. Ryder considered the question, staring into the fire. "Sometimes. But there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. I am alone a lot, but I do not feel lonely most of the time. I have got the ranch, the work, Otto when he is around. And I like the quiet, the space to think. I do not think I have ever had that. Space to think, I mean. There has always been so much noise, so many people telling me what to do, what to think, how to be." Hannah pulled her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. "Out here, it is like I can finally hear myself." "And what is yourself saying?" Ryder asked, his eyes on her face. that I am terrified. The admission came out before Hannah could stop it. Terrified that I will get to Council Bluffs and fail. That the shop will not work, that I will not be good enough, that I will end up right back where I started with nothing to show for it. Fear is not a bad thing, Hannah. Fear means you care about the outcome. It is what you do with the fear that matters. Ryder shifted, moving a little closer. You could let it stop you, keep you from trying. Or you could use it, let it make you work harder, be smarter, fight for what you want. What if I fight and still fail? Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least you gave yourself a chance. He reached out, taking her hand in his. And for what it is worth, I do not think you will fail. I think you are going to build something amazing in Council Bluffs. I think you are going to prove to yourself and everyone else what you are capable of. Hannah looked down at their joined hands, his so much larger than hers, calloused and strong. I wish I had your confidence. You will find your own. Just takes time. Ryder squeezed her hand gently, then released it, moving back to his previous spot. We should get some sleep. Want to cover a lot of ground tomorrow. They settled into their bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire, the flames casting dancing shadows across the campsite. Hannah lay on her back, looking up at the stars, and thought about what Ryder had said. About fear and failure and fighting for what you wanted. She had spent so long being afraid, letting that fear control her choices. Maybe it was time to be brave instead. The second day brought more of the same, endless miles of prairie and sky. They passed a homestead around midday, a sad little collection of buildings that looked like they were barely hanging on. A woman came out as they rode by, and Ryder tipped his hat to her. She waved back, her face lined and weary, and Hannah felt a pang of sympathy. The West was hard on everyone, but it seemed especially hard on women. You think she is happy? Hannah asked once they were out of earshot. Hard to say. Some people thrive out here, others just survive. Ryder shifted in the saddle, adjusting his hat against the sun. I hope she is happy, though, or at least content. That is all most of us can ask for, I think. Not happiness all the time, but contentment. A sense that we are where we are supposed to be, doing what we are supposed to do. Are you content? Hannah asked, genuinely curious. Most days, yeah. I have got my land, my work, my freedom. That is more than a lot of people get. He paused. Been feeling a little less content lately, though. Why? Ryder was quiet for so long Hannah thought he was not going to answer. Then he said very softly, because I have gotten used to having you around. And I know in a few days you will be gone and the house is going to feel a lot emptier than it did before. Hannah's breath caught. Ryder, I know. I know you have got your plans, your life in Iowa, and I am not trying to make things harder or make you feel obligated, just being honest. He still was not looking at her, his eyes fixed on the horizon. You asked if I was content, and I am giving you an honest answer. I was content. Now I am not so sure. Hannah did not know what to say to that. Her heart was pounding and her mind was racing, but no words seemed adequate. So she did the only thing she could think of. She tightened her arms around his waist, holding him a little closer, and rested her forehead against his back. She felt him sigh, felt some of the tension leave his body, and they rode like that for a long time, not speaking but saying everything that mattered. That night, they camped in the shelter of a rocky outcropping that provided some protection from the wind. Ryder was quieter than usual, focused on the practical tasks of setting up camp. Hannah helped where she could, but mostly she watched him, trying to memorize the way he moved, the set of his shoulders, the concentration on his face. After they ate, Ryder pulled out a harmonica and played a few simple songs. The music was plaintive and beautiful, floating out over the prairie like a prayer. Hannah sat and listened, captivated not just by the music but by the man making it. When he finished, she applauded softly. That was beautiful. I did not know you played. My mother taught me. She said music made hard days easier. Ryder tucked the harmonica back into his pocket. I am not very good, but I enjoy it. You are better than good. Hannah moved closer, sitting beside him instead of across from him. Will you play something else? He did, a longer piece this time, something that sounded almost like a lullaby. When he finished, Hannah found herself leaning against his shoulder, comfortable and relaxed in a way she had never been with anyone else. Ryder did not pull away. Instead, he shifted to put his arm around her, pulling her closer. Hannah, I need to tell you something, he said after a long moment of silence. What is it? I am falling for you, maybe already have fallen. I know it is fast, I know it does not make sense, but it is true. His voice was quiet but steady. And I think maybe you might be feeling something too. Am I wrong? Hannah's heart was racing so fast she thought it might burst. You are not wrong. Then stay. The words came out rushed, almost desperate. Do not go to Council Bluffs. Stay here with me. We can build something together, make a life. I know it is crazy. I know we have only known each other a week. But Hannah, I have never felt this way about anyone. And I do not want to let you go. Every dream Hannah had been nurturing, every plan she had made, seemed to hang in the balance. The shop in Iowa, the fresh start, the independence she had craved. But sitting here in Ryder's arms, feeling the steady beat of his heart, she realized that maybe her dreams had changed. Maybe what she wanted now was not a lonely independence but a partnership, someone to build a life with. I have the shop, she said, but even to her own ears, it sounded like an excuse rather than a reason. Sell it, or keep it and hire someone to run it, or come back here and we will figure out how to start a business in Montana. Ryder pulled back enough to look at her, his eyes intense. I am not saying you have to give up your dreams, Hannah. I am saying maybe we can dream together, build something that is ours. What if it does not work? What if we are making a mistake? Hannah heard the fear in her voice but could not hide it. Then we will deal with it, together. Ryder cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle. But Hannah, I would rather try and fail with you than succeed at anything without you. I know that does not make sense. I know it is reckless, but it is true. Hannah felt tears streaming down her face, but for once, they were not tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of relief, of joy, of finally finding something she had not even known she was looking for. I do not want to go to Council Bluffs. I want to stay with you. God help me, I want to stay so much it terrifies me. Then stay. Ryder's voice was rough with emotion. Stay and let me show you every single day that you deserve kindness, that you deserve love, that you deserve everything good this world has to offer. Yes. The word came out as barely more than a whisper, but it was the most certain thing Hannah had ever said. Yes, I will stay. Ryder kissed her then, soft and sweet, a promise and a beginning all at once. Hannah kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, all the fear and hope and love that had been building since the moment he had ridden into her life. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless and smiling. I love you, Hannah Hayes, Ryder said, resting his forehead against hers. I love you too, Ryder Lawson. Hannah laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. I cannot believe this is happening. A week ago, I was dying beside a broken wagon. Now I am planning a life with a cowboy I barely know. You know me well enough, and you have got the rest of your life to learn the rest. Ryder pulled her close again, and they sat like that under the stars, holding each other and planning a future that neither of them had seen coming. The next day, they changed course. Instead of heading northwest toward Helena, they turned back south and east, toward Ryder's ranch. Hannah felt a pang when she thought about the property in Iowa, the shop she would never see, the life she would never live. But it was overshadowed by the excitement and joy of the life she was choosing instead. "We will write to the lawyer in Council Bluffs," Ryder said as they rode. "Let him know you will not be claiming the property and authorize him to sell it on your behalf. The money from the sale can be your investment in the ranch, make you a full partner in everything we build." "I do not need to be a partner," Hannah protested. "It is your ranch. It will be our ranch, our home. I am not asking you to give up your independence to be some kept woman, Hannah. I am asking you to build a life with me as equals." Ryder spoke firmly, brooking no argument. "We are partners in everything. That is how this works." Hannah felt a lump form in her throat. "No one has ever treated me like an equal before." "Then it is about time someone started." Ryder reached back to squeeze her hand. "Get used to it, because that is how things are going to be from now on." They made it back to the ranch late on the fourth day. Otto was surprised to see them returning together, but seemed pleased when Ryder explained in his straightforward way that Hannah would be staying permanently. "About time you found someone," Otto said, clapping Ryder on the shoulder. "And Miss Hannah, you could do worse than this stubborn cowboy. He is a good man, even if he works too hard and does not know how to relax." "I am learning that," Hannah said, smiling. She felt different already, lighter somehow, like a weight she had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a new routine. Hannah and Ryder wrote to the lawyer in Council Bluffs, explaining the situation and authorizing the sale of the property. Hannah felt a moment of sadness when she sealed the letter, saying goodbye to the dream that had sustained her for so long. But when she looked at Ryder, when she thought about the life they were building together, the sadness faded. They talked about the future constantly. Ryder wanted to expand the herd, maybe get into horse breeding like he had mentioned before. Hannah suggested they could sell her sewing skills as well, making clothes for the other ranchers and homesteaders in the area. There was no seamstress for 100 miles, and she knew there would be demand for her services. "We could add a room onto the house," Ryder said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set. "Make it your sewing room. You could have clients come here, or we could deliver finished pieces, build it into a real business." "Our business," Hannah corrected, and Ryder grinned. "Our business." As summer turned to fall, Hannah discovered that Ryder had been right. She was content in a way she had never been before. The work was hard, harder than anything she had done in town, but it was satisfying. She learned to help with the cattle, to garden, to preserve food for the winter. She sewed clothes for Otto and Ryder, then started taking commissions from neighbors. Word spread about the quality of her work, and soon she had more business than she could handle. The money from the sale of the Iowa property came through in October. It was more than Hannah had expected, enough to significantly expand the ranch and still have plenty left over. True to his word, Ryder insisted they use it to buy more cattle and build the addition to the house. He also insisted they go to the land office and add Hannah's name to the deed, making her a legal co-owner of the property. "This is your home too," he said when she protested. "If something happens to me, I want to make sure you are protected, that you own this place as much as I do." Hannah cried when they left the land office, the new deed in her hands with both their names on it. For the first time in her life, she owned something. She had a stake in her future, a security she had never imagined possible. That night, lying in Ryder's arms in the bed they now shared, Hannah thought about how much had changed in just a few months. She had gone from being lost and alone, waiting to die beside a broken wagon, to being loved and valued, building a life with a man who treated her like she hung the moon. "What are you thinking about?" Ryder asked, his fingers trailing lazy patterns on her arm. "How lucky I am. How different things could have been if you had ridden a different direction that day." Hannah turned to look at him, still amazed that this incredible man was hers. I do not believe in luck, I believe in fate. Ryder kissed her forehead. You were supposed to be there that day, I was supposed to find you. We were supposed to end up here together. Everything else was just details. You are a romantic, Hannah teased, but her voice was soft with affection. Only with you. Ryder pulled her closer. You make me want to believe in things I never thought about before. Happy endings, true love, all that stuff I thought was just for stories. We are a story, Hannah said. The cowboy and the stranded woman. It sounds like something from a dime novel. Except this is real, and it is ours. Ryder's voice was fierce with conviction. And I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that you deserve every bit of happiness we build together. Hannah kissed him, slow and deep, pouring all her love into it. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered, I believe you. I believe I deserve this, I deserve you, I deserve happiness. Damn right you do, Ryder said and kissed her again. Winter came hard and fast to Montana that year. By November, snow was piling up around the house, and the cattle needed constant care to make it through the brutal cold. Hannah learned to bundle up in layers, to break ice from water troughs, to keep the fire going day and night. It was exhausting work, but she loved it. Loved the satisfaction of keeping the animals alive, of maintaining the home she and Ryder had built together. On Christmas Eve, with the wind howling outside and snow falling thick and fast, Ryder pulled Hannah aside after dinner. Otto had already left for his cabin and they had the house to themselves. Ryder looked nervous, more nervous than Hannah had ever seen him, and she felt her heart start to race. Hannah, I know we have not been together that long by conventional standards, but out here, time moves different. A few months of living side by side, working together, building a life together that is worth years anywhere else. Ryder took her hands in his, looking into her eyes. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You make me better, make me want to be better. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you if you will have me. He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple gold band from his pocket. Hannah Hayes, will you marry me? Hannah felt tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Yes. Yes, of course I will marry you. Ryder slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. He stood and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until they were both dizzy and laughing. They kissed, and it felt like coming home, like finding a place she belonged after a lifetime of searching. I do not have much to offer, Ryder said when they finally pulled apart. Just this ranch, this life, and a promise that I will love you every day for the rest of my life. That is everything, Hannah said, meaning it with her whole heart. That is more than I ever dreamed of having. They married in January, in a simple ceremony at the small church in the nearest town. Otto served as witness, along with a few neighboring ranchers who had become friends. Hannah wore a dress she had made herself, simple but beautiful, in a deep blue that Ryder said matched her eyes. Ryder wore his best shirt and pants, his hair neatly trimmed for the occasion. They spoke their vows in front of the preacher and God and anyone else who might be listening, promising to love and honor each other for as long as they both lived. The party afterward was rowdy and fun, with music and dancing and food that the whole community had contributed. Hannah danced with Ryder, with Otto, with strangers who had become friends, feeling more joy than she had known was possible. This was her community now, her home, her life, and it was beautiful. That night, back at the ranch, Ryder carried Hannah over the threshold even though she laughingly protested that it was silly. He set her down gently in the middle of their home and pulled her close. "Hello, Mrs. Lawson," he said, grinning. "Hello, Mr. Lawson," Hannah replied, still getting used to the sound of her new name. "How does it feel to be married to a simple cowboy?" Ryder asked, kissing her neck. "It feels perfect, like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Hannah pulled back enough to look at him seriously. "Thank you, Ryder, for everything. For saving me, for loving me, for showing me I deserve kindness and love and all the good things I thought were out of reach. You do not have to thank me. Loving you is the easiest thing I have ever done." Ryder cupped her face in his hands. "And I am going to spend every day for the rest of our lives proving it to you." Spring brought new life to the ranch. The cattle started calving, and Hannah and Ryder spent long days and nights making sure the new arrivals survived. It was hard, exhausting work, but there was something beautiful about it too. About bringing new life into the world, about watching something grow and thrive under your care. In May, Hannah started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, she thought it was just fatigue from the long hours, but when it persisted for more than a week, she began to suspect the truth. She rode into town to see the doctor, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. The doctor confirmed what she had suspected. She was pregnant, about 2 months along if his calculations were correct. The baby would come in late fall or early winter. Hannah rode home in a daze, her hand resting on her still flat stomach, marveling at the life growing inside her. She found Ryder in the barn, repairing a broken stall door. He looked up when she entered, and his smile faded when he saw her expression. "What is wrong? Are you all right?" He dropped the hammer and crossed to her in 3 long strides, his hands going to her shoulders. "I am pregnant," Hannah said, and watched as the words registered. Shock, then joy, then something that looked like awe crossed his face. "We are having a baby." His voice was barely above a whisper. "We are having a baby." Hannah laughed, tears streaming down her face again. Happy tears, she noted. She seemed to cry a lot these days, but they were almost always happy tears now. Ryder swept her into his arms, holding her tight but carefully, as if she were made of glass. "A baby! We are having a baby!" He pulled back, looking at her with wonder. "Are you happy?" "I know we have not talked about this, have not planned for it. I am terrified," Hannah admitted. "But yes, I am happy. So happy I can barely believe it is real. It is real. All of this is real." Ryder placed his hand over hers on her stomach. "We are going to be parents." The pregnancy was not easy. Hannah was sick for the first 4 months, barely able to keep food down. Ryder hovered, worried and protective, driving Hannah crazy with his constant concern. But she loved him for it too, loved that he cared so much, that he wanted to make sure she and the baby were safe. As her belly grew, she had to adjust her work. She could not help with the cattle as much, could not ride as often. But she threw herself into her sewing business, making clothes for the baby and taking on more commissions to help build up their savings. Ryder worried she was working too hard, but Hannah insisted. She needed to feel useful, needed to contribute to the life they were building. In late November, as the first serious snow of winter began to fall, Hannah went into labor. It was long and difficult, lasting nearly a full day and night. Ryder stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, whispering encouragement even when she screamed at him to shut up. Finally, as dawn was breaking on the 2nd day, their son was born. He came into the world screaming, tiny fists waving, already furious at the indignity of it all. The midwife cleaned him up and placed him in Hannah's arms, and she looked down at the tiny, red, wrinkled face and fell completely in love. "He is perfect," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He is beautiful, just like his mother." Ryder sat beside her on the bed, one arm around her shoulders, staring at their son with the same awe Hannah felt. What should we name him? They had discussed names but never settled on anything definite. Now, looking at her son, Hannah knew what she wanted to call him. "Thomas, after my father, Thomas Lawson." Ryder tested the name, then nodded. It is perfect. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world, son. Those first few weeks with a newborn were the hardest thing Hannah had ever done. Harder than crossing the prairie, harder than labor, harder than anything. Thomas needed constant care, feeding every few hours day and night. Hannah was exhausted, her body still recovering from birth, and there were moments when she broke down crying from sheer overwhelm. But Ryder was there for all of it. He changed diapers and walked the floor with a crying baby at 3 in the morning. He brought Hannah food and made sure she ate even when she was too tired to think about it. He told her she was doing great even when she felt like a failure. And slowly, they found their rhythm, learned how to be parents together. Spring came again, bringing with it Thomas's first smile, his first laugh, his first attempts to roll over. Hannah marveled at how fast he was growing, how much he changed from day to day. She loved watching Ryder with their son, the gentleness with which he held him, the patience he showed when Thomas was fussy. "You are a wonderful father," she told him one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset while Thomas slept in her arms. "I am trying to be better than mine was," Ryder said quietly. "I want Thomas to grow up knowing he is loved, knowing he can be whatever he wants to be. I do not want him to feel like he has to prove himself or earn affection. He will know. We will make sure of it." Hannah leaned against Ryder's shoulder, feeling the deep contentment that had become her constant companion. "We are going to do this right." The years passed in a blur of work and love and building the life they had dreamed of. The ranch prospered, growing from 50 head of cattle to more than 200. Hannah's sewing business became well known throughout the territory, and she had to start turning down commissions because she could not keep up with demand. They added onto the house twice, first the sewing room they had planned, then more bedrooms, because Thomas was not an only child for long. 2 years after he was born, Hannah had a daughter, Emily. Then 3 years after that, another son, James. The house that had once seemed too big for just the two of them was now filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of children. Hannah had never been happier. Oh, there were hard days, days when the children were sick, or the cattle got out or money was tight. But those hard days were balanced by so many good ones. Family dinners around the table Ryder had built with his own hands. Christmas mornings with the children's excited squeals. Summer evenings sitting on the porch, watching the sunset while the kids played in the yard. On their 10th anniversary, Ryder took Hannah out to the spot where he had first found her beside the broken wagon. They rode out together, just the two of them, leaving the children with Otto for the afternoon. The wagon was long gone, of course, probably scavenged for parts or rotted away. But the place itself was unchanged, still the same rolling prairie and endless sky. "You ever think about what would have happened if I had not been riding this way that day?" Ryder asked, his arm around Hannah's waist as they stood looking out over the land. "Sometimes," Hannah admitted. "But not often. It feels like another life, like it happened to someone else. You are so different from the woman I met that day, stronger, happier, more confident." Ryder turned her to face him. "Though you were always those things, you just did not know it yet. You helped me see it. You showed me I deserved kindness, deserved love, deserved everything good I had convinced myself I did not deserve." Hannah stood on her toes to kiss him. "You gave me everything, Ryder. You gave me everything too, a home, a family, a purpose beyond just surviving." Ryder pulled her close. "I love you, Hannah. More now than I did 10 years ago, and I will love you more 10 years from now. I love you too. Always." They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the place where their story had begun, grateful for the twists of fate that had brought them together. The children grew. Thomas became a serious, thoughtful boy who loved books and learning but was not afraid of hard work. Emily was wild and fearless, always climbing trees and getting into trouble. James was the peacemaker, gentle and kind, always trying to make everyone happy. Hannah and Ryder raised them with love and discipline in equal measure, teaching them to work hard but also to dream big. "Do you think they will stay here when they grow up?" Hannah asked one evening when the children were in bed and she and Ryder had the house to themselves. "I do not know. I hope so, but if they want to go see the world, make their own way, we will let them." Ryder pulled her onto his lap and she curled against him, comfortable and content. "We cannot make them live our dreams. We just have to give them the tools to chase their own." "When did you get so wise?" Hannah teased, running her fingers through his hair, still thick but now streaked with gray. "About the time I met a stubborn woman who taught me what really matters in life." Ryder kissed her, slow and sweet. "You have made me better, Hannah, made me the man I always wanted to be." "We made each other better. That is what love does." Hannah settled more comfortably against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "We were both lost when we found each other. Now we are found." More years passed. The children grew into teenagers, then young adults. Thomas went to college in the East, studying law, determined to come back and help build Montana into a proper state. Emily surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, her wild energy channeled into helping children learn. James stayed on the ranch, discovering the same love for the land that Ryder had. Hannah and Ryder grew older together, their hair turning gray, their hands growing more weathered, but their love never dimming. They still sat on the porch most evenings, watching the sunset, talking about their day, planning for the future. They still kissed each other good night every night and good morning every morning. They still found joy in the simple things. A good meal, a beautiful day, the sound of their children's laughter. On their 30th anniversary, their children threw them a party. It seemed like half of Montana showed up, people whose lives Hannah and Ryder had touched over the years. Clients who Hannah had made clothes for, ranchers who Ryder had helped during hard times, young couples who they had mentored, the community they had helped build over 3 decades. "Look at what we did," Hannah said to Ryder as they danced together, the music floating out over the prairie. "Look at the life we built." "It is a good life," Ryder agreed, holding her close. "The best life I could have imagined." "Do you ever regret it? Saddling yourself with a broken woman you found beside a wagon?" Hannah asked, only half teasing. Ryder stopped dancing, looking at her with the same intensity he had shown 30 years ago when he had asked her to stay. "You were never broken, Hannah. You were just hurt. And no, I do not regret a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Marrying you, building this life with you, raising our children together, it has been the greatest privilege of my life." Hannah felt tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I love you, Ryder Lawson. I have loved you since the moment you offered me kindness when I did not think I deserved it. And I will love you until my last breath." "I love you too, Hannah Lawson. Forever." They kissed there in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by family and friends, and it felt like coming full circle. From a broken wagon and a desperate woman to this, a life filled with love and purpose and joy. It had not always been easy, but it had always been worth it. As they grew even older, their children married and gave them grandchildren. The ranch that Ryder had started alone and Hannah had joined him in building became a family legacy, passed down through the generations. Thomas practiced law in Helena but came home often, bringing his wife and children. Emily taught in the local school, raising her own family nearby. James took over the day-to-day running of the ranch, but Ryder and Hannah still helped where they could, not quite ready to let go entirely. On a warm summer evening when Hannah was 65 and Ryder was 68, they sat on the porch together, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Their bodies were older now, aching in places that had never hurt before, but their hearts were still full. "You remember what you said to me the day I found you?" Ryder asked, his hand finding Hannah's as naturally as breathing. "I said a lot of things that day, most of them foolish." Hannah smiled, remembering the scared, desperate woman she had been. "You said you did not deserve kindness." Ryder turned to look at her, his eyes still the same whiskey color that had captivated her so many years ago. "Do you still believe that?" Hannah thought about the life they had built together, the love they had shared, the children they had raised, the community they had helped create, the countless small kindnesses and large ones that had filled their days. "No, I know now that I deserved every bit of kindness you showed me. Every bit of love we built together. I deserved to be happy." "Yes, you did. You deserved everything." Ryder lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "And I am so grateful I got to be the one to show you that. I am grateful, too, for all of it. For you finding me, for you loving me, for you being patient while I learned to love myself." Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder, watching their grandchildren play as the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold. "This is a good life, Ryder. The best life." "The best life," Ryder agreed, his arm around her shoulders. "And it is not over yet. We still have time." They sat there as the stars came out, surrounded by the sounds of family and the land they loved, grateful for every moment they had been given. From a chance meeting on a dusty prairie to this, a love that had lasted decades and would last until their final days. It was more than either of them had dreamed of, and exactly what they both deserved. Years continued to pass, and Hannah and Ryder grew old together with grace and gratitude. When Ryder passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 75, Hannah held his hand and told him she loved him one last time. She grieved deeply, but without regret, knowing they had made the most of every day they had been given. Hannah lived another 5 years after Ryder's death, surrounded by children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. She spent her days sewing and telling stories about the grandfather the younger ones had never met, making sure they understood the love story that had created their family. She talked about the day a cowboy had found a desperate woman beside a broken wagon and had shown her that she deserved kindness, deserved love, deserved everything. When Hannah passed away at the age of 80, she was buried beside Ryder on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their graves were marked with simple stones that bore their names, their dates, and a single line that their children had chosen. They showed each other they deserved everything. The ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, a testament to what two people could build when they believed in each other. And on warm summer evenings, if you stood in just the right spot, you could almost see them. A cowboy and his wife, sitting on the porch of the home they had made together, watching the sunset over the Montana prairie, still showing each other, even in memory, that they had deserved every moment of the beautiful life they had shared.